are you still thinking about maybe you go back to short course at some point, or are you like, no, listen, that's kind of, that ship has sailed, now I'm long course only?
I don't think the ship has sailed yet. I mean, I'm 27 now, turning 28 in not too long. And yeah, I mean, I'm not like young in sports, but still triathlon is a sport where you can kind of develop longer than other sports. It's easy to find motivation for many things, like for many years. It's so many things to improve on. And I think... I think I still have some unfinished business, even though most of my performance where people have taken notice is in long distance. But short distance is still it's very fun, and it's just a huge challenge.
The Norwegian method.
I'm Gustav Iden, 3 times world champion and Kona record holder.
I'm Dr. David Lippman, a health and human performance specialist, and welcome to the Norwegian Method podcast.
The Norwegian Method.
Thank you, VO2 Master, for sponsoring this episode. VO2 Master is a great tool for me. Training is my job, and VO2 Master makes my job easier. So one of the great things about VO2 Master is that you can use it by yourself, and especially with the Garmin integration and a simple to use app. So you can use it for a lot of things. The way I use it is to sometimes measure efficiency when it comes to running technique or testing shoes, or there's a lot of different ways to test efficiency, and also out there in the real world testing VO2 max. It's good to go into the lab, but nothing beats the real world. That's where we're competing, and that's where we want to be the best. So VO2 Master helps us a great deal there.
Welcome back to the Norwegian Method podcast. Joining me today, Gustav. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, it's good to be back here. Still in Sierra, still having a good time, I think.
Awesome. Well, the vibes have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's we're out at the track yesterday, finding lots of time for you both, actually, in different endeavors, and getting to see some prototype shoes. So all been very exciting up here. How's it been for you?
The training camp has been going quite okay, actually. So bumping up the running volume, bumping up every type of volume, both swim and bike as well. So it's good to feel tired from the training and not just feel drained. Yeah. Like it's good to just feel like the training takes something out of you. That's a privilege.
Yeah, for sure. And we talked in the first episode we released with you and Christian together, talking about some of that stuff. And the other day, just a little while ago, you finally got back to sort of being on the bike and really pushing Christian, and that felt good. And I actually was speaking to Olav away from the podcast the other day, and he said it's sort of bringing a tear to his eye. So it's cool to see sort of you three and that interaction there. But I guess let's go back and sort of bring people up to speed as to how we got to where we are, so to speak. People have joined you for either long parts of your career or shorter parts, and sort of may not know.
I think most people joined in 2019, I would say.
Well, it's perfect then. Yeah. Well, let's actually rewind that then and go let's go back a little bit. So most people, know you from 2019 forward, winning world championships. Some people would know that you were a good junior cyclist, but very few people would know that you were trying to get onto Eurovision. So maybe let's start there.
Yeah, so I had a very diverse upbringing, I will say. Family of 5, brother and sister. And we played in a band, and I played football and running and cycling, but it was mostly cycling, I would say, the family was doing. And some music and some other stuff. But in my mind, I was never it was a cyclist I thought I was supposed to be. Like that was the most, what I enjoyed the most. Like the freedom, being outside, and you can see so much stuff. And that's still with me today. Like I love just going out and explore and being on my own or with friends and just, ride. So that is still, I think that is basically me, to just be on a bike and then go out and see. Okay.
And so you transition from this, trying out for Eurovision, being in a bit of a band. You're a cyclist. You're obviously a good runner. How did you end up in triathlon? Like, what was that journey into it like?
Like the start of triathlon, basically, for me and in Norway, was like an open camp for anyone who might be interested in triathlon. in Oslo. Me and my brother and Christian and some other guys was invited for that camp. And I got to hear after that it was no point on putting your money on the Iden brothers because they were too bad of swimmers. So you might as well go with some good swimmers and try to teach them to run. But yeah, it's good to prove someone wrong, even though I never felt like I needed to prove someone wrong. Like I didn't have that motivation by like I'm going to show them kind of motivation. My motivation was always because I was just enjoying it. And that was in 2010, I think. And from there on, it got less and less cycling and more triathlon. And yeah, I just found my sport, or the sport found me, I don't know. But yeah, I really love cycling, but I also loved running. And I knew to win like Tour de France and those kind of things, you kind of have to only be on the bike. But I didn't want to sacrifice the running as well. So yeah, triathlon it was.
Okay. And how did you get invited to that camp? Because, I mean, you're obviously a good cyclist and probably a good runner, so they sort of looked at you and said, okay, but there's also people saying, yeah, he's not a good swimmer.
Yeah.
So how did you get invited to that?
Yeah, I did one triathlon in 2006, I think, when I was 10 years old. Maybe 7, but yeah, quite early. But that was only because the youth national championship in cycling and triathlon was the same place 1 weekend apart. So my father, he has always been really good at finding races and challenges for me and my brother and sister. So I don't know how he came across it, but he figured out there was a triathlon there, and I did it, and I didn't do anything more. I did like a mini version of Norseman as well.
Oh, really
so
cool.
I did like a couple of triathlons before this camp, but it was because I was a good cyclist and runner that I was invited, I think.
Yeah. And how did you go in those triathlons? Like, was it clear that you were good at triathlon, or was it kind of like, oh, yeah, sort of keeping up because I come out so far back on the swim?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have a talent for endurance sport. And always had a high VO2 max. Like I did some testing at a very, very young age, and I had like over 80 at maybe 16. So always have a talent for endurance sport. So I mean, even though I'm a really bad swimmer, I can compensate a lot with a good bike and a run.
Yeah. And how do you think about that? Because in my mind, looking at relative durations of the 3 disciplines, I don't think swimming's a prerequisite to being successful at triathlon. And of course, things are evolving to where you can't have a weak sport, you can't have a weak discipline there. But historically, we're talking, 10 years ago plus.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to be such a barrier for me. And obviously people thought it was for you. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's in short distance, it is tough now. And especially if the first group is really, pulling it together and trying to work, then it's really hard to come from behind there. And especially because a lot of the people in the rear, like if you lose maybe 5 seconds, they don't gain any time. The motivation to push at the back end, it's really low. So some days it goes, some days it doesn't. But it's hard to do short distance without being a really good swimmer nowadays. I think long distance, it's still very much possible, but you need to swim decent, not good, but pretty okay, I would say, to really compete for the win.
Yeah. And just there, you delineate between short and long course. Was that always the thought that you would be short course, or did you sort of have an eye on Ironman from the start, or how did that feel for you? I mean, because obviously Olympic Games is such a big goal for so many people. Yeah. You're talking Tour de France, and obviously, okay, I can't go to the Tour de France, but now it's probably Olympics. It's probably not Kona.
Yeah.
Was that the thinking, or did you always have an eye on long distance?
My dream has always been to perform in short distance, but that's maybe because you want what you can't have, kind of thing.
Yep.
And I think I have a bigger talent, or what to say, in long distance. But long distance has also evolved quite a lot the last few years, and the level is getting higher, so it's more enjoyable to really pursue that kind of distance as well. But I think the short distance dream is mostly because I haven't mastered it yet, and I feel like I should be able to do well there, and I should be able to perform better. But so far, I have some good races, but mostly it's been some ups and downs. And I have some World Cup victories, I have some podiums in the World Series, but missing like the dream performance. And I feel like I had an insanely good race in Lausanne in 2018 in a World Cup, but it's a World Cup, so it doesn't really matter. But I feel like I should in theory be a good short distance athlete, but I haven't nailed it yet.
And is that what drives you? Is it about the craft and getting better, or is it about winning? Because, to contrast you and Christian, and I don't really like doing that because I think too many people do that too often. Yeah. But he talks about motivation to win and those sort of things. Or is it for you? How does that sit? Is it about, hey, I want to just get better, and getting better for me is improving short course and of course long course. But is that the driver, or is it about winning and sort of proving people wrong?
It's definitely about improving, and I think that is what's going to keep me motivated in 10 years from now, trying to really dive into like these small details that can bring me closer to a victory, even though like Christian would never be happy with not winning. I could be happy with like a good performance as well. So I could be happy with a second place if I knew that was like what I could in a day and really performing well. And I also I wouldn't say disappointed with a victory, but I could have a victory where I was like, okay, it's good, but I still have so much more in me to get out. So we are kind of different, me and Christian, and he is we do a lot of training together and we do kind of the same things, but I would say personality wise we are not really that similar, but the more time we spend together, I think the more similar we get, and I don't think that's a good thing.
They say that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, so there's a lot of Olav and Christian going to be coming into you, I
Not
think.
good.
Yeah. I'll let them know you said that, but it's an interesting point you bring up there around the process focus, because I think that's so crucial to success.
Thank you for Morten for sponsoring this episode. I've been using Morten for many years. Before I was official with Morten, I was unofficial official, and I used it for a lot of racing even before I got started with them like as a partner. I usually use the 320 both in training and racing, and sometimes I even use the caffeine gel in the morning if I don't bother to drink some coffee, just to get a good start of the day. I use the solid 160 for a lot of my training and especially post-training. I love the oat or the natural taste the best. For me, the oat is the GOAT. But the Morten 320 is a revolutionary product, and it helped me for so many trainings and victories over the years. So Morten is truly groundbreaking sports nutrition. For 20% discount on Morten, check the show notes for the details.
Just to tug on that sort of short distance stuff a little bit more, because I've in prepping for this read all sorts of stuff. There was an article that you sort of were quoted in saying you had some unfinished business with the short course. Mm-hmm. Does that still hold true? Because obviously things have changed for you, like lots has changed in your life, and we will touch on that. But are you still thinking about maybe you go back to short course at some point, or are you like, no, listen, that's kind of, that ship has sailed, now I'm long course only?
I don't think the ship has sailed yet. I mean, I'm 27 now, turning 28 in not too long. And I'm not like young in sports, but still triathlon is a sport where you can kind of develop longer than other sports. It's easy to find motivation for many things, like for many years. It's so many things to improve on, and I think I still have some unfinished business, even though most of my performance where people have taken notice is in long distance, but short distance is still it's very fun, and it's just a huge challenge.
Okay, well, watch this space, because it feels like there might be another transition back to short course. You heard it here first. I'm interested to see how that goes, given some of the stuff I saw yesterday, which were not such marginal gains from you guys. So let's go back there then and talk about, it's October 2022, you win Kona. You're on debut at Kona, you win it, course record, run record, you're on top of the world. A little while later, arrive in St. George. Yeah. Let's talk through that. What goes on there? What happens in St. George?
You of course come to Kona to learn, kind of, and most people learn on race day. I think I learned most after race day, how much it takes out of you, both the race in itself, but also everything around. And I was a bit too optimistic in my planning of the end of the season. Like, should I just beached myself like a beached whale? I should have just stayed there and relaxed instead of just go straight into the next challenge. Like, this is an area where me and Christian is quite different. He's like win it and done. I am win it and then I have to kind of like digest my feelings a bit, maybe a bit more, or not maybe, more emotional, and takes longer time to really digest everything. So we went to LA like 2 days after the race, did a podcast. Me and Christian, we drove up to St. George and had a training camp there. And the travel and the temperature difference and the climate and everything just played into my disadvantage. I was sick and was feeling really bad and trying to get ready for a race that I kind of knew I wasn't get ready for. And at this point, I haven't lost a single long distance race since 2019. Like, every single race I've been in, I have won. And just the challenge of it all felt a bit overpowering. I was smashed by Christian in every training and I was feeling really, really bad. But I wasn't sick at the race day, and I wasn't like, it wasn't any reason to not be there, kind of. But I just knew that it was not going to be my day, and the race was even worse than I imagined. And I had some chest pain as well. So on the run, I just sat down and actually started crying because I was just so disappointed. And going from really, really high in Kona, and where everything was just lined up, to I felt like a challenge that was way too big. It was, it was a hard few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the most, like, that was a really sad scene. I was watching that race. And I remember you sitting down and just thinking, geez, that's tough.
And then the camera guys come up to me like, do you want to do an interview? Like, I know.
Yeah, that's, well, let's actually dissect some of that, because I think, how does that feel? You, as you said, you haven't lost a race in years. You got your lucky cap on.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, he's unbeatable in his cap. Yeah. And then you don't necessarily win that race. Like, is that feeling of pressure of like, I can't lose? Is that there for you? Or are you just kind of like, no, it's process, I just want to perform well? Or are you really feeling that pressure?
Like, I did feel it a little bit. Yeah, I have to be honest. Like, when you go so many races without like even losing, no second place, like everything has been a victory. It is tough, and kind of at some point the magic is broken, and then but the pressure is mostly from within. Like, my friends and family and sponsors, they're really generous, and especially now this period where I've been kind of out of it and injured, I feel like I had a lot of support, and people want me to come back, but it's mostly for my own part, not that I'm going to sell more products, it's mostly for my enjoyment. So I do feel the pressure, because I mean, this is what I can, this is my life. I have no education and I don't want to do anything else. I want to be a triathlete, but to survive as a triathlete, you have to race and you have to perform, and so the pressure is there, but mostly from me.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about like all of the stuff outside of triathlon, the travel, climate, all that stuff, but also media around Kona, or travel, all that stuff. And that seems to be something, again, without wanting to keep doing this and to compare to Christian, but you mentioned that affects you a lot. And in our podcast the other day with you and Christian, sort of Christian talked about simplifying things and removing some of that stuff. How does that sit with you? Because we're going to talk in a group podcast, you and Christian, again, about some of the media and sort of the content you guys do. But how are you thinking about that going forward now that you've had, significant life stress and all this other media stuff on top of you, and then this external pressure and the comeback, and you're prepping for your next race? So how are you thinking about travel schedules and life outside of, I guess, pure training?
Yeah, when things are going your way, everything is super easy. Then I can do 5 podcasts a day and still get in my 3 sessions. But then suddenly things change, and you get more tired and you're not even able to finish your training session. So I guess it depends on where in life you are and how motivated you are to do it. But I definitely notice more now that the social stuff and the outside of triathlon stuff is more demanding, and especially like social media. When you are, like I've been really down and out, and you still gotta post like, you don't have to post, but I mean like the audience and some sponsors, like kind of like expect it a little bit, and you have to put on a happy face. I mean, that is a bit challenging. And what I love most about myself and some other people is like the authenticity, like that you show who you really are. And for me to show that I'm down and out and in social media, it is good for me, but maybe some people don't find it that good, and especially not like the branding is not always that good. But everything is easy when things are easy.
Yeah, and I mean, look, people love authenticity, as you say, but you've also, at least to this point, maybe let's call it till 2022, you created an audience around you of this success, right? It's a Norwegian Live Train, it's you and Christian, they're unbeatable, they're these robots, and now it's like, I'm actually going to be a human. Yeah, and that's really different. And look, part of the people like me are going to go like, that's awesome. I love to see that, and people really engage with that. But there is probably a group of people going like, oh, well, you know, like, what is he now? And so I can appreciate that must be tough. But let's tug on that now. Is like, you do your own social, and that's not necessarily common. I think there's a lot of elite athletes who don't do their own social.
I have some periods where I haven't posted so much. So then my manager, who's very great, and he's just like, you need to try to post a little bit more. Like, no, I'm not in it. And he's like, okay, but do you want for me to take over? Like, nah, I want to do it myself, just to have control and to be honest and authentic. So do my own socials. It's not that much work. I do like a post every second week, and I got my photos taken by some professionals. So I mean, it's not that hard, but it's it's good to keep it true.
Yeah.
Join Santara Tech members Clubhouse. You get exclusive content, in-person and online events, offers from partners, and so much more. Join at santaratech.com/membership.
And that, you touched there on like the positivity side of things and that expectation of you. And again, we're in an environment at the moment, and like the positivity here is palpable. How hard is it to stay positive when you are struggling, right? Because you don't want to bring that. And I know you are thinking, listen, I don't want to ruin Christian's training. I don't want to bring this to Olav. Like how was that for you to be, I'm really struggling here, but I can't really bring that. I have to bring something different. Yeah,
like we said on the first episode together with Christian, we're not complaining on training. We try to keep this positive environment, and it is like the mindset of that is, it is good. But when you're really feeling down and you try to fake your positive and fake it, then it might work for some time, but it's just, it drains you. And then it's better to maybe not say anything at all. But when you don't say anything at all, people are like, oh, how are you feeling? And if you then say like, I'm feeling awful, I'm so sad and I'm so out of it, then just brings it even further down. Because if you actually ask someone and they're feeling sad, then you're kind of not obligated, but maybe you are obligated to kind of empathize a little bit. So then you're also feeling like a bit down, and that whole mood of the training goes down. So it is tough to be sad in a happy environment.
Yeah, and you guys have a small environment too, right? Yeah. Like, well, there were 12 people or 14 people at Track S, so maybe not so small at the moment, but that's a very rare situation. And we'll talk about that in the coming episodes. But for the most part, your team is very small around you. It's you, Christian, Olav, maybe a training partner like Kenji's in there. Maybe you've got Orion in the environment, but that's it. Yeah. And
usually it's just me and Christian. Like Olav is there for some time, but usually it's only me and Christian. And we are very different. I'm much more emotional, but I don't want to like infect the training situation either. So sometimes it's better to just say to Christian that he should go train alone today.
Yeah. AirPods in.
AirPods in. Yeah.
AirPods in at breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah, got you. Okay. And that makes a ton of sense that, that's really difficult then because, in a big group, it's a little bit easier.
It's easy to hide. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's easier to be one person's down, but 10 people are up and it's like, okay, well, that guy's struggling. We'll help him a little bit. But if it's two of you, it's like, Jesus is ruining my vibes.
Yeah.
So, no, I get that. So we talked about, St. George, post St. George, that was tough. So then you have your sort of moment post St. George. What happens from there? So that was...
I actually had an amazing race straight from St. George in Bermuda.
Yep.
Like the race in St. George was, as I said, really bad. But then in Bermuda, I was top 10, I think maybe 8 or something.
Yep.
And I was straight out of long distance training, straight from Kona and St. George. So at that moment, I kind of thought that Paris will be not easy, but should be very doable. I was a bit worried going back to short distance after doing long distance for quite some time, but my good performance in Bermuda was like, this is going to be so easy, and I'm gonna nail it. And then we do a short season break, and I start training again, and things like never really gets better. Like I'm trying to keep my volume, but I get sick all the time and just tired, and have an awful race in Abu Dhabi. It was just a lot of things going wrong at that moment, but the race I wasn't last, I think, but I was among the last ones, and I couldn't, like usually when I come out of the water I know I'm quite far behind, but I'm able to really push on the bike. But there I think I had lower average power in Abu Dhabi than I had in Kona.
Wow.
And that's a 20k race.
Yeah. And
I'm on a road bike, and I'm trying to push what I can, but my power it just doesn't get there. So then I try to figure out what's wrong, but nothing is really wrong, I would say. I don't feel like I can't put my finger on anything. It's not like my threshold is low. It's not like my VO2 max is low. It's just that I can't really push the power when I'm supposed to. And I'm getting like a little bit worried about going back to short distance, but I still it's on time, and it's not that bad, and I'm able to get on the start line in Yokohama as well, even though my ranking is not that good. And also in Yokohama, it goes so bad. I'm trying to push, but I'm not able to, and just everything is bad, basically.
And so you mentioned going to Abu Dhabi, everything was going badly around it. What was some of the stuff that was going wrong? Because obviously you raced well to that point, so racing is kind of there. So what else is going on for you?
Yes, family situation. So I have had a mother that had cancer, so that I managed to kind of distance myself a little bit. I wouldn't say maybe not distance, but I kind of manage it. But at that time I was feeling like things are not moving in the right direction, and sometimes when you're feeling things it is correct. So at that time also her health was getting worse and worse, and even though they didn't really say too much at home with my mother and father, I just had a bad feeling, I'm getting a bit emotional just talking about it now, but it's just
That's okay, take your time.
So I just I was still living at home at that moment, and things are you just see her, she's getting more and more sick, and then obviously you want to go to Paris. I had this dream for so many years, and Tokyo was good. I came top 10, and it is a good performance, but it is the victory you kind of after. So I had this dream also for Paris to just nail it, and but to nail it you have to get there. So I was trying to qualify, but every race was just getting worse and worse, but I feel like the time was running out. So I did racing even though I was not ready to race. And I mean, I don't know if this like looks good on camera even, but
don't worry about it if it looks good,
Yeah.
mate. It's all good. Sorry, we don't have any tissues.
yeah. Yeah. I don't think. I mean, this is just a small part of the podcast, but like this is, I guess this is not what the podcast is, really about. But anyway, so trying to race when I'm not ready. But I had this dream that was still living inside, and like I go to Cagliari, and this is end of May last year, and at that time my mother was like still at home, but strong medication and everything. And then I go to Cagliari. I have such a bad race, and come across the finish line and just started crying because I go here only to get the points because there was no other reason to go there. But then I'm so far behind, I don't even get points. And then I go home, and then like I barely made a connection at home because some delays. And then I land in Bergen like just before midnight, and I got picked up by my brother Mikael at the airport. And then we go straight to the hospital because my father is there, and so we go there, and then she's like, she makes eye contact with me, but that's like the last really communication I get with her before she passed away, like half a day later. So it just feels really fucked to go to a race and then just you don't get why you're there, you don't get the points, and then you come home, and then it's basically too late to really say goodbye, and too late to, not that you're gonna enjoy someone dying, but like you don't get the goodbye, and that really was not good. So from there on, like the season just got worse, and then I think the total stress just I wouldn't say that made me injured, but of course it is part of the whole process. And Achilles injury is like very common when people have life stress. It's like you get stiff necks, or like you got some physical reaction to mental pain, and I think my Achilles was one of those. So since then I was just trying to find enjoyment in training again, and now I feel like I'm in a really good spot even though I'm crying on a podcast. But it's that like I'm really, honestly, I'm like really believing now that things are turning. I am feeling quite well actually, and training is going quite well, and my Achilles is doing much better. And in 1 month I will race 11th of May in Mallorca. But it is painful to watch someone die. It is really, really, really hard.
Yeah. Well, thank you for opening up. I know it's tough, and I appreciate that, and don't want to let that sort of be unsaid or unappreciated, I'm sure. Yeah. You sort of mentioned you weren't ready to race at that point. when you say that, do you mean physically, emotionally, or mentally, or all of the above?
Yeah, I think all of the above. Like I did some training, and from the outside, the training data looks okay. Like as I mentioned, my power data was okay in training. Like the threshold, there was nothing wrong with the threshold. I mean, it was not amazing, and my VO2 max was good, but then I just couldn't deliver. I feel like in a testing scenario, it was okay, but when I was doing the training, it was hard for me to really push and to really do what I wanted to do. And racing, it was even worse. Then I was feeling the racing was even worse. Then I was feeling really like I couldn't push it. So I feel like the respiratory was not good. I was just like not breathing deeply. I was not calm. I was just stressed. I was not stressed because I knew I was able to perform, because I get the most nervous before a race when I know I have the possibility to win, because then everything I do wrong just takes away from the chance. So usually when I'm nervous, I know that I have a really, really good chance in performing, and everything that stops me from winning is just mental. Like I know I have the power and everything. But now I just felt stressed because I knew I had to do something I was not able to do. I knew that I had to basically get a top 10 to get enough points. But my training data showed that at best I could get a top 20. So it was just, unrealistic goals and, stressful.
Yeah, I get that.
Thank you, Plasmade, for sponsoring this episode. The way I use Plasmade is usually before my hard swim, bike or run sessions. I use it to increase my flow of oxygen within the blood. So I feel like it's hard to really describe the feeling, but I know my body really, really well. And the way it works for me is that I feel like the blood is more efficient in taking up the oxygen. So it's maybe not that I have directly higher oxygen uptake, but the transportation is more efficient, and I can swim faster with less breathing, which is ideal for training. Experience the benefit of Plasmade for yourself. Use the code TRY20 online and get 20% off your next purchase.
And so at what point did you sort of work out, listen, this is not going to happen for me?
I tried basically the whole summer, but after Hamburg, which was also a terrible race, I kind of knew that it was not going to happen. But when you have had a dream for so many years, it's hard to shut it down overnight. And it's still something within you that is, you think it's possible. So I was really eager to go to Paris for the test event. Me and Christian, we had this insane. He was the one who managed to do it, but I had a plan to do the same with him, to race in Paris for the test event, go straight to Singapore and do the PTO race there, and then go back to Europe and do Lahti. But I didn't get my spot in Paris because of some, for me, bad decision by the federation, and I was really pissed at that time. Like I was feeling still that I had a chance to go to Paris and I had a chance to perform, and I still think it was the wrong decision by the federation, but it was just on top of everything else that happened, and for them to also deny me this chance, it was just. Usually I'm quite level-headed, and it's get a lot of, you have to do a lot of things wrong to get me pissed. But at that time I was just super pissed at everything, like my training situation, and then denied the start spot in Paris, even though that was my spot. I had qualified with my points. I was just so annoyed. So didn't get the chance to race in Paris. Went to Singapore a few days earlier than planned to get ready there. But things went wrong there as well. And the day before the race, I was walking my run, because the Achilles pain was quite severe, and I didn't really say it to anyone. I still pretended to be optimistic, even though I think a lot of people just saw right through it. And I was so glad when I fell on the bike. It's not good when you're happy for crashing out of the race, but I was just losing so much time on the bike, and I knew that my running was way worse than my cycling. So if I lost so much on the bike, and running 18k in the heat and with my Achilles issues, I was so pleased with not being able to run there. So it's crazy when you're happy for crashing out. That is not good for a performance standpoint.
And so you crash and you say, you just said, I was really sort of happy. Is that feeling relief? Is it, listen, this is done. I'm done. And like now I get to just relax and try and work this out. Is that what you were feeling?
Yeah, I was feeling done. At that moment, I knew that I was not racing Lahti. I could blame some, injuries in my crash, even though I fell in maybe 20k per hour. I had no injuries. But it was just felt good to get an external excuse instead of saying that I was broken and kind of sick of triathlon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's that conversation like with Olav? So you've just fallen, you're sick, you're done. You've got a reason. What do you say to Olav when that happens?
Olav was very understanding, and he knew this before, and he is not a fan of racing. He loves the numbers, but he doesn't care about racing. So he was happy for me to not race in Lahti, and he thought that it was a cool and fun project, but it was nothing to do with performance. Like, of course, traveling that much and all the time zones, it's not good for performance, and he knew this. So he was just happy for me, and he was glad when I said that, I'm done with the season.
Okay, and so you're done. Now what happens? So you say, listen, I'm done. I'm not going to Paris. Season's done.
Yeah.
Now what happens?
So now comes the problem with Achilles, because even though I take it easy for a couple of weeks, nothing really happens. I'm still in pain. I do ultrasound to check what's wrong, and I do MR and do some other treatments. And it's an inflammation, but not in the Achilles tendon itself. It's like the sheet on the outside. Mm-hmm. And the first doctor I go to say, this is going to take 3 months. And you're just going to take your time. Nothing really helps. You can do some eccentric exercises, but it might help, it might not. And then I was like, no way, this is not a 3-month thing. Like, everyone just goes to the doctor until the doctor gives you the answer you wanted. Yep. So then I try a new one. I was like, we can maybe do some PRP treatment. And then I do the PRP treatment at with a doctor in Germany. And PRP is when you take out the blood from, you can take it from wherever, but you take it from the arm, and then you spin it around, and then you just take out some parts of the blood, and then I inject, or not me, but the doctor injected it straight to the tendon where the problem was.
It tickles, doesn't it?
The needle is so huge. Yep. And it was a bit scary the first time, but the second and third time I got kind of used to it. But the needle looks insane. Yeah. But that treatment didn't really work either, and in the end I just decided to take my time. Yep. And that's what I've been doing now. I have slowly increased my running, and it's still some pain, but it's not too bad now. And if I take easy a few days, everything goes away. So I'm trying to keep the pain level at the same level, but then increase my my volume. So if the pain doesn't increase but my volume increase, that for me is a good sign that things are going in the right direction.
That's progress.
That's progress, yeah.
And so what have you, you've given us just so much insight here in terms of psychological factors and all those things that, probably before that, as a younger man, you were thinking, yeah, I'm invincible. Yeah. I can deal with anything.
Exactly.
Like, I can compartmentalize, you know, mum's struggling and I'm struggling around that, but I can put that aside and perform. Yeah. So what have you learned from that? What does your worldview look like now that it didn't look like before that?
Yeah, I think I definitely have grown as a person. Before I thought that the mental part of triathlon, the struggle, was just bullshit. Like, I was world champion multiple times actually, and everything was just easy. I didn't have a single struggle in my life, and I thought that if I didn't have a struggle and was able to perform under this kind of pressure, no one else would feel the pressure because I was, the best triathlete in the world. So if I didn't feel the pressure, like, why should anyone else feel the pressure? And then suddenly things changed, and now I see the struggle, and I can really, I have really, compassion for my triathlete professional friends, because the struggle is real sometimes, but it's something you have to deal with. It doesn't help to complain about something you're not able or willing to do anything about. I've spent a lot of times going to therapy and talking about the things. And even like this, talking about this in public, like on a podcast, to people, and get people to listen. That is for me also part of the process to get to be where I want to be again. Because I think if you are hiding your pain, it is easy to hide it for a while, but then the struggle comes. So it's good to have a platform where people might listen, might skip over, I don't know, but it's good for me, and hopefully this is just a part of the process on my way back to winning Kona and every other race there is.
Well, I'll say explicitly on air that people will be listening. I can guarantee you that they'll be appreciative, and I think this is a really important message from people to hear. Especially young men really struggle to talk about some of their problems, and I think being able to do that, seeking help, is really, really important, especially through whatever struggles people are having. So thank you for doing that for the audience and for me as well. I appreciate how vulnerable you've been. That's tough. Just wanted to touch on one more thing before we wrap up this podcast, but you mentioned some therapy. You mentioned a team in Germany. You mentioned some other doctors that didn't give you the answers you wanted. We obviously know your small team. Who else is in your team? Who else helps?
We have so many great partners. Like, as I mentioned here, we are 12 people up here for 2 athletes. So it is cool to have such a huge team around us. But the team is very dedicated to one process. So 3 of the people here now, or 2, they're here only because of the tri-suit. And then we have people here who's only media, and people here only for nutrition. So the team is really specialized, and that is something I do enjoy. I hate getting input from I wouldn't say wannabes, but especially if you're injured. And I know this is like people just want to help, but everyone is just coming with these recommendations. Like, I have a friend who is a therapist, and she might be able to heal you through healing. Like, it might help for someone, but and I do understand it's just through love, but getting all these inputs, it is hard because my team is already so dedicated and so specific that I don't need more help, kind of. And when we have some issues that we can't solve ourselves, like the doctor in Germany, like, I don't have a dedicated doctor in the team who's only doing PRP, so then we have to outsource some of the issues. But me and Christian, we are fortunate enough that we are kind of known, and we have a lot of friends in high performance. So this doctor, he had like a lot of high profile athletes from before. So it's hard to mention everyone on the team, but we are a lot, and everyone is super dedicated and good at their job. Yeah,
as are you two. You know, the job, the main thing's the main thing, racing well. So glad to see you getting back. We'll touch more on that in another podcast, but I wanted to thank you again for being so open and honest and vulnerable. And again, the listeners will appreciate it.
Thank you for giving me a platform to cry.
It's okay. I'm sorry we didn't have any tissues for you. But no, we will touch a bit more on some of this stuff in the next episode. So please do share this podcast with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Do subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and we will see you next time on The Norwegian Method.
See you next time.
The Norwegian Method.